You're seeing a 20% deli Wisp Scarab T16.5 juiced breach map with all the good stuff, astrolabes, all that kind of good stuff. The gear that I'm using is under 100 divines. It's got some easy to get uniques, one or two like mid-priced uniques, and then a variety of gear that I have crafted myself. And the reason that I tell you this is because I have been looking at a lot of the POBs out there for League Start, even for Shockwave Cyclone Slayers, and I've noticed that within 3 or 4 steps of the POB, we're already getting into 500 to 1,000 divine territory with Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Fleshes that are going to be completely unobtainable for 95% plus of the community. And because of this, my guide's coming out a little bit later because I have really tried to focus heavily on making gradual, easy steps that you can take to have a good League Start experience where the next jump in your gear is not from a 25 total divine character to a 600 divine character. On top of that, I am going to be League Starting this build. This is my personal League Start of this league, and if you followed along with me on my Spark Mage last league, you'll know that I do individual updates as I am progressing, and this time I'll also be streaming as much as I can over at twitch.tv/bigducks. So anything new build-wise that I do come up with or gets introduced in the new league, you'll be able to know as soon as possible. Now, why am I League Starting Cyclone? And the honest answer is that I played it last league, and I released a build for it last league. It was on my second channel, so I wouldn't fault you if you don't know about it. Cyclone is just a really fun build. Like, it's just a super enjoyable build. And when I did the League Start testing for this, I was surprised at how smooth it was from as soon as you get it at level 28 all the way through the end game. There was never really a point where I felt weak on this build. Through the campaign, you literally are just tapping your right click to proc your shockwave and clearing blue packs with one hit a lot of the time. In endgame, you're spinning, you're winning, you're doing lots of damage, you're relatively tanky, and you can move while doing your damage, meaning that you can stay out of danger's way. Now, talking a bit about the basics of this build, this is a Shockwave build. Cyclone is just facilitating the use of Shockwave support, and later on we'll be using the Void Shockwave support. And the main difference between this and the normal one is that this Shockwave will repeat for up to 4 times from 4 different enemies in the area, meaning that the clear on this is way larger than just the AoE that you see from Cyclone. Now, speaking about Cyclone, we are using a alternate version of Cyclone called Cyclone of Tumult. And typically the downside of this ability is that you lose a lot of movement speed, up to 50% less movement speed at full stages. This is awful for Cyclone because you really need to be able to move to do your damage. However, with the Replica Stampede, which we are using because it is significantly cheaper most of the time than the normal Stampede, it has this line that says your movement speed is set to 150% of its base value, and this can be volatile volled later on in the league to give you even more movement speed. What this means is that you can move at full movement speed at all times. Your movement speed is set to that value. So we completely bypass the downside of Cyclone of Tumult. And the upside to the Cyclone of Tumult is that it does so much more damage than the normal version of Cyclone. It's actually kind of insane. And as I said before, beyond the Replica Stampede, the rest of the uniques in this build are relatively obtainable. We're talking Rislotha's Coil, Carnage Heart, and Death Rush, as well as a couple jewels. And then all of the rest of the gear is just Eldritch Influence crafted pieces. And for a large portion of the endgame, we're actually using a extremely cheap, unique staff called the Yielding Mortality. This carries you for a lot longer than you might realize, all the way up into like the late endgame. And then once you're ready to swap off of this, I've got full crafting notes on how to make a big fizz staff, as well as crafting notes on every single piece of gear that you might need to be able to get to the build that you see in front of you. I have put a ton of work into this guide, making sure that there is details for everything that you could want, and going forward I'll be updating it with any problems that arise in the new league. So if you enjoy my content, or you've played my builds in the past, or you're planning to league start this one, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more updates coming in the new league. And without further ado, let's jump in and talk about some of the progression steps that I was talking about earlier so you can see what you're getting into with my version of this build. So first, let's talk about the written guide. This is where most of the effort has went in on this build. There is a ton of information here. Obviously, if you are an advanced player, you can just grab the 2 POBs that I have here, as well as a third POB that'll be available on League Start. Otherwise, if you want more information on how to actually play the build, if this is either like the first time that you've played Cyclone, or maybe you want a little bit more handholding, I have like detailed notes on every single step of the way that you will be going through all of these acts here, everything that you should be thinking of, the skills that you should be grabbing, all the way up through Act 10, white maps, yellow maps, how to do a crit swap over to the yielding mortality, as well as like all the way up to your first 2 stones. And then we go into the trade sections where I talk about all of the gear that you might use, alternatives that you might be able to use, as well as like how to craft things. So for example, when we swap to Chaos Res and Ellie Avoidance, you're going to need to craft a helmet that has these deafening essences of torment. So the information on how to craft this is here, as well as upgrading into like the Stampede and Void Shockwave, the things that you should be thinking about when you're ready to craft like a big physical staff here, which is like a pretty decent sized upgrade. All of the detailed notes on how to do it, as well as like a Fortify cluster, and then moving into like an Animate Guardian setup towards the end, all the gear that you use on it. And if something isn't answered in this guide, you can ask me either on my stream over at twitch.tv/bigducks, on my Discord, and if there are new questions or problems that arise, I'll update the guide with it as soon as I can. So this should be the most up-to-date place to get any of your information. And if you are just interested in using the Path of Building, these Path of Buildings are extremely detailed, starting from leaving town. We've got every single step of the way so that you know exactly where your points are going on the tree. None of that like, oh, here's 30 or 40 points, figure out where to put them. This tells you exactly where you're putting your points every single time, all the way up through to 2 stones complete. I did this on SSF. And yes, I did find a yielding mortality in my SSF run, which was kind of cool, but this should be a relatively cheap staff early on in the league. And then when you're ready to transition into the end game, I have the second in-game POB here that's mainly for trade, meaning that you're going to be buying these items and upgrading through all of these different steps. And as you might be able to see, these are gradual steps. This isn't like jumping from 25 divine to 700 divine in one step, essentially. This tells you exactly which pieces of gear you should be changing around, what you should be upgrading, when you should be upgrading it, all the way till you get to the point where you're at this Animate Guardian setup. I also have the Animate Guardian's gear in here. This will show you step by step how to get to the character that you saw on your screen at the start of the video. It's got the skills, it's got the items, it's got the trees for pretty much everything. And that's going to be it for the video. So remember that I will be live playing this as long as nothing catastrophic happens over at twitch.tv/bigducks, so make sure to come and check it out over there. And remember, boys, if you enjoy this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in raid class. Then I'll see you guys in the next video.